My boss slid my review across the table with a perfect score and a familiar insult. 10 out of 10, he said. 3% raise. Then he told me to try again next year. So I did. I tried something new. I let them fund my training, stacked my skills, and walked out to a job that paid triple. The best part was watching him beg to match a number that was bigger than his own salary. If you have ever built a win and watched someone else pocket the reward, hit like right now. Subscribe for more stories where quiet planning beats empty promises. Today, patience meets payback, and the spreadsheet finds its spine. I started my career as an engineer at a defense contractor. It was the sort of place where the carpets never changed, the fluorescents hummed, and raises arrived like winter mail. 2 to 4%. Safe, predictable, suffocating. I was good at my job. Not loud, not flashy. The person who stayed late to fix the test bench and showed up early to run the data again because the numbers fell off by a hair. After a few years, I could see the ceiling. I was not going to break it by waiting for the calendar to hand me permission, so I asked to move on to the management track. The company offered me a trial by fire, a project engineer role. Small team, big target. If I could lead, I could grow. They handed me 4 engineers, 1 designer, and 2 admins. We were told to design and manufacture a system the Air Force actually wanted to buy. The brief was tight. The timeline was tighter. We built it anyway. We lived in labs and rental cars. I remember hard hats that smelled like dust and coffee, vendor visits that ran past midnight, and hotel rooms that all had the same beige art. I counted 100 days on the road that year. My kids measured time by the number of little soaps I brought home. But we delivered. Sales hit $1.6 million in year 1. We secured a patent. The Air Force nominated us for an award and flew us to Washington. The photo from that ceremony sits in a frame somewhere. 7 tired faces in rental suits that almost fit, smiling like we had bent steel with willpower. Then came performance reviews. My manager laid the form on the table and tapped his pen for drama. 10 out of 10. Top marks. I felt a pressure release in the center of my chest. It was relief and pride mixed together. 2 days later, I learned a member of my team, who reported to a different manager, had been promoted to senior early. It was a big jump. I congratulated him. He earned it. Then I saw my raise. 3%. The same 3% the company would give if I had spent a year alphabetizing a parts closet. I walked to my manager's office and closed the door. Calm voice. Steady hands. I asked for the logic. He said he did not think my team member should have been promoted either, but since that person reported to someone else, there was nothing he could do. He told me to try really hard again, and we would see about next year. There are noises people make when they are punched in the gut emotionally. Mine is silence. It is a long quiet, the sort that pulls back from the conversation like a tide and leaves the rocks exposed. In that quiet, I made a decision. I was done sprinting on a treadmill for the privilege of standing still. I did not rage quit. I did something better. I downshifted. I worked my 40 and no more. I did not volunteer for travel unless it actually interested me. I took my Fridays, my sick days, my evenings. I went home. I slept. I saw my family. My life stopped feeling like a cramped layover and started to feel like a home I lived in. But I did not waste the time. Our group had an education budget that collected dust. Most people were too tired to use it. I was suddenly well rested. My teammate, the one who got the early promotion, signed up for an MBA on the company dime. That program had strings. Stay for a set number of years or pay it back. Fine by him. Not my path. I looked at the other programs. No handcuffs on software training. So I signed up for finite element analysis and advanced 3D modeling courses. Real skills, market ready. The company paid for flights, hotels, per diem. My teammate and I traveled, took notes, and practiced until the methods felt like muscle memory. We laughed about being students again. We talked about careers that felt larger than our cubicles. When the classes ended, I updated my portfolio quietly. No fanfare, just clean examples, small write-ups, and proof I could solve the kind of problems that made recruiters sit up straighter. Then I applied. I did it at night after the kids were asleep. I tailored each resume to roles that required the new tools. I sent 5, then 10. Replies started landing within a week. Interviews followed. Technical screens felt less like exams and more like puzzle games I'd already learned to enjoy. One offer came in that made me blink twice and check the number again. Base pay at 200% of my current salary. Overtime eligible. Realistic hours. Clear path. Respect built into the package. I accepted. Then I walked into my manager's office and placed my notice on the desk. He stared at the paper like it was a magic trick. Then he looked up at the face of a man who has only just realized the pot has been boiling for a long time. We just sent you all over the country for those classes. He said, those are the skills we need here. I nodded. I learned them. That part is true. He tried a different angle. What about loyalty? What about guilt? I thought about 100 days away from my family, about a patent on the wall, about a 10 out of 10 review with a 3% raise. My voice stayed even. I am grateful for the experience. I am also taking a better job. He asked for the number. I told him. He laughed reflexively, the way people do when they expect a joke. Then he saw I was serious. His face changed. We will try to match it, he said. Let me talk to upper management. You will not, I said. I had learned to listen to my own certainty. He pushed anyway. Fine, he said. How much is it? I told him again. He rubbed his forehead and said a sentence that should never be heard by a direct report. That is more than I make. He was not lying. The number I had in hand was bigger than his base. Even if they wanted to, they would not match it, not without rewriting an entire pay band. It took the air out of the room. On my last day, I turned to my badge, packed a small box, and walked past a lab where I had spent nights chasing clean test results. There was no anger left, just a tidy kind of closure. The next year, I earned roughly 3 times my old take-home with overtime. The work was intense and the standards high, but there was a fairness baked into the place. You brought value. You were valued. Simple math. Beautiful math. The old company called once. My former manager asked how things were going, and if I would ever consider coming back. I thanked him for the call and told him the truth. I could never go back to a room where my best year was treated like a rounding error. There are a few images I keep in my head from that period. One is a hotel hallway at 5 a.m. My breath whitened the air as I headed out to a test site and thought, this will matter to someone. Another is a conference room table with a performance review sitting on it like a glass of water you're not allowed to drink. The third is a simple email with a subject line that said offer and a number that made me sit very still and feel, for once, the worth of my own hours. People talk about quiet quitting like it is apathy. It was not. It was a boundary. I stopped donating the part of myself that the company had proven it would not pay for. Then I took the time that created and built a bridge to a place that would. I do not hate my old manager. He was a cog in a machine that rewards a promise of next year more than the proof of this one. But it was satisfying to watch the script flip. The man who told me to try again next year had to ask if there was any way to keep me this year. The answer was no, not because I wanted revenge, but because the math had finally been done in my favor. My teammate with the early promotion finished his MBA and stayed a while, then left too. We had dinner once and laughed about those training trips. He said the best thing we ever did for that company was learn how to be too valuable to keep cheaply. I raised my glass to that. Looking back, there was no single dramatic moment, no slam door or shouting match, just a series of calm choices that added up to a better life. I wish I had made them sooner. I also know I could not have. I needed the insult to crystallize a plan. Here is the part one want anyone listening to remember. Companies will tell you what you are worth every time they put a number on paper. Believe them. Then decide if that number buys your days. If it does not, spend your days somewhere else. The payoff arrived in a few crisp beats. First, the resignation meeting. My boss stared at the offer figure and repeated it like an echo. That is more than I make. It was not triumph I felt. It was confirmation. For years I had poured myself into a role and accepted the story that patience would be rewarded. The new number ended that story cleanly. Second, the counteroffer that never came. He said he would try. He did not call back with a match. The silence was an admission. They could not stretch to what I had already earned elsewhere. Third, that first paycheck at the new place. I held the slip and did the simple arithmetic of hours traded for money and remembered what it was like to feel the floor under my feet. Sometimes justice is not dramatic. Sometimes it is a correct invoice finally being paid. Revenge does not always look like a takedown. Sometimes it looks like a door opening for you and closing behind you. They trained me. They paid for the ticket, and I took the flight. The lesson is simple. Build your value where it is seen. Then walk. If this story gave you a little courage, tap like. Tell me in the comments the moment you realize your job was underpaying your life. And subscribe for more true stories where patience, planning, and a clean exit beat empty promises every time.